The Assistant Minister to the Treasurer.
Well, thanks very much, Mr Deputy Speaker. I'm not sure who to believe. The Shadow Treasurer who was just at the dispatch box, or the Chris Bowen who wrote Hearts and Mind, a blueprint for modern Labor, where he speaks very eloquently about corporate tax cuts.
Really? What page, Chris?
I don't believe either of them, because we've got to remember this is the man. This Shadow Treasurer is the man who is the worst immigration minister that this country has ever seen. 25,000 people arrived on your watch. This is the man whose great idea was cash for clunkers. That absolutely outstanding piece. It was his idea. It was a great idea. I don't think it ever happened. What about Fuel Watch? What about Fuel Watch? Whatever happened to Fuel Watch? But what happens in the Labor Party when you're the worst immigration minister this country has ever seen, when you come up with absolutely crazy schemes like Fuel Watch, you get a promotion. You get a promotion. But to be a bit more serious about the substance of this MPI, the Labor Party take growth for granted. That's the problem. They think there is a God-given right for this country to have growth and we don't have to work hard for it, and the government doesn't have to put policies in place that encourage growth. This is the position of Labor. Now, I feel for the Shadow Treasurer because I suspect the Shadow Treasurer is a patriot. I suspect he's a patriot, but every time good economic data comes out, he goes hiding. He can't speak about it. It's almost as though he's just desperate for some bad economic data, and it's not coming. It's not coming.
I found the page.
Since in the last 12 months, we have had jobs grow by 371,000. 371,000 Australians have found a job in the last 12 months. And importantly, when we talk about inclusive growth, so-called, 315,000 of those are full-time jobs. 315,000 out of the 370,000 are full-time jobs. That is what gives people the best start in life they possibly can, a job. A job. And the Labor Party think you can take growth for granted. They think that we have a God-given right to all of the investment that creates those jobs without doing any of their hard work to make it happen. The Labor Party think that those in small business, just open the shop and the customers just roll in and the profits just roll in. Otherwise, how could you explain why Labor believes that a small business with a turnover of just over $2 million should be treated the same as Apple and Google and should be denied a tax cut? And we saw yesterday in a number of interviews on television, Labor MPs evading questions about what they will do with these small business tax cuts. Well, I think we know what it means. It means that if a Labor government was elected, small businesses will pay higher taxes, because small businesses, according to the Labor Party, are doing it easy. Well, I can tell the Shadow Treasurer, I can tell the Labor Party that small businesses, small family businesses fight for every single dollar of profit. Small businesses pay the rent first, the employees second, the suppliers third, the tax fourth. They pay themselves last. So when we can give them a tax cut, hopefully they can invest and grow that business. We know a lot of the jobs growth I've spoken about here, 371,000 in the last 12 months, has come from the small and medium enterprise sector. This is the place that's creating the opportunity for Australians. These are the sorts of businesses that create the growth, the inclusive growth that the Shadow Treasurer talks about. So words are cheap. Words are absolutely cheap, but you've got to do the hard work to encourage those small businesses, encourage Australians to create the economic growth that can deliver these opportunities. We can't take it for granted, and the Labor Party thinks you can. Yes, we've had 26 years of uninterrupted growth, 17 of those from coalition governments. 17 of those stewarded by coalition governments. And we've got a Shadow Treasurer who often evokes the memory of Keating and Hawke, and in fact jumped the shark by evoking John Howard, I think, a few months ago. John Howard's not as charitable about you as you are about him. But the legacy that you are claiming, the legacy that you are claiming is one that you are completely repudiating. The legacy that you are claiming, the legacy that you are supposedly proud of, you are completely repudiating. So you have now gone back to a pre-Hawke Keating era of thinking that says you encourage more investment and therefore create more wealth for Australians and therefore create more opportunities for Australians by having a higher corporate tax rate than our competitors. That is plainly wrong. And page 63 of this fantastic book, Hearts and Minds, A Blueprint for Modern Australia, actually says it. I mean, there's a very big heading here.
Yeah.
It's in bold. It's a bold heading. I mean, it's not a particularly lengthy tome, but there's a bold heading here: promoting growth through cutting company tax.
Oh, what?
Promoting growth
Really?
through cutting company tax.
He's reading from a document. I'm wondering if you could table the book. It's a good book.
There
and
is no point of order. The member for Chifley will resume his seat. I give the call to the Assistant Minister.
Well, can I say to the honourable member, it's pretty easy to get your hand on one of these. They're only a couple of bucks, just in the bargain bin, in the bargain bin at the front of bookstores, right there. So they're not that hard to find. Promoting growth through cutting company tax. Now, what has happened between then and now? What has happened between then and now? I think I know what's happened between then and now. Bill Shorten's become leader of this party, and the left is large and in charge of the Labor Party.
Gotta fight
And
back.
what is sad is that someone like the Shadow Treasurer has not been able to stand up to them. Someone like the Shadow Treasurer, who evokes the memory of Hawke and Keating, who cut company taxes, is now someone who wants higher company taxes and higher taxes on small family businesses.
Hey?
This is a man who wants small businesses with a turnover between $2 and $10 million to be denied tax cuts, to be denied the ability to access concessions like the instant asset write-off. These are not rich people. These are not Apple and Google. These are small businesses that might have 1 or 2 or 3 employees, small businesses who treat their employees more like family members than employees, but he wants to deny them a tax cut. And he hurts not only those small businesses, but he hurts their employees, because if those small businesses are doing it tough, then it's harder to provide those opportunities for inclusive growth that he talks about. But speaking of growth, in the last quarter we had growth at 0.8% in one quarter. And we talk about the Shadow Treasurer. It must be hard. It must be tough as someone in that role that every time some good economic data comes out, he's torn in himself. I'm sure as a patriot he thinks this is great for the country, good on the coalition government for delivering 0.8% growth, but he's torn. He can't say it. He cannot say it. It must be a very difficult position to be in. We've also seen the dividends for the government. We've seen dividends for the country from encouraging this sort of growth that this government has. Now, we saw the final budget figures come in $4.4 billion better off than expected. Now, this is very important. This is the first time since the last Costello budget, the last coalition budget before the rabble of the Rudd-Gillard-Rudd government, where we've exceeded expectations, and this was delivered under Treasurer Morrison's watch. We have exceeded expectations, and it's very important because, unlike the Labor Party, we under-promise and over-deliver. And that is what that shows. Well, you might think the Labor Party, Mr Deputy Speaker, the Labor Party might think that $4.4 billion is a trifling amount worth laughing at. But we think that is extraordinarily important and telling, and absolutely telling that the economy is seeing growth and strength in a way that we have not seen since the Howard and Costello government. But we've got a lot more to do, and we cannot take it for granted.